Hi, welcome to block 4 of just spooling around. I'm going to show you before we start working on another colorway that I came up with this morning. There we go. Isn't that cool? So today's block is named Fair and Square. Now here's our fair and square block. Don't forget, you should already have your tops and bottoms of your spools already cut. Remember, we're using the stitch and flip method. So let's get started making our fair and square block. For block construction, gather your parts, and you're going to need a writing tool that you can write on your fabric that's not permanent. For our first step, we're going to mark on one diagonal of your colored squares. So I've already got 3 completed. So let's go ahead and draw one here. Now we're going to set those aside. That's just quick and easy prep. On our first step, let's go ahead and mark the diagonal on the back of 4 of our colored squares. So I'm going to use this, align my ruler. You're going to draw one diagonal line from corner to corner. Repeat that on 3 of your squares. So you have 4 rectangles. You're only going to need 2 rectangles for our next step. So let's remove these. You're going to take and sew. There we go. You're going to take and sew a square to either end, not using the squares that have the diagonal line marked on the back. All right, join those 2 and press towards your rectangle. Before we move on to the next step, the one thing I wanted to talk to you about is that, first of all, these are traditional cotton fabrics, but when I pieced this one, I used a mixture of batiks and cotton solids. So I want to talk to you about where your needle is placed. With batiks, I can have my machine set on like a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance I'm setting in my machine. But when I go to work with traditional cottons, I have to move my needle over one position in order to accommodate for the thicker fabric to get a better 1/4 inch seam allowance. So keep that in mind, and don't forget to trim away your threads as you're piecing. All right, so let's move on to the next step. We're going to need our center square, and then you're going to need your fabrics that you drew the diagonal line from corner to corner. So we're going to place on each corner. We're going to do one at a time. You're going to sew directly on your drawn line and then trim away a 1/4 inch. So we're using the stitch and flip method. Repeat on all 4 corners, sewing on the line, trimming a 1/4 inch away, and then just for safekeeping, go ahead and take your ruler and also make sure that the end result is the proper measurement as stated in your pattern. I'm on my last side, and I wanted just to remind you, it's stitch, trim, and press, and then measure to make sure it's the correct size. For our next step, we're going to join our rectangle pieces to construct or to complete our block. So join a rectangle to either side of your center, and then these make up the top and the bottom. So you're going to join those, and then you will press according to the arrows in your pattern. I finished my fair and square block. Now, as you are attaching the remaining of the units, make sure you're pressing these rectangles that attach to the middle, they press out. And then when you join these tops and bottoms to here, they also press away from the center. So your next few steps are just follow the pattern that you received in your email. You're going to add your joining strips to finish framing it. And let's look at the blue and white and orange one. So you're going to take your block and you're going to add your joining strips, your left and right, your top and bottom. Then you're going to add your other side one, and then the top and bottom that make up the spool. Have a wonderful day. Just spooling around block number 5 will be next week's.